for this week. It's day 8, so that covers 8 days that we were supposed to do for these 2 weeks. So I wasn't sure which one you like better, if you like these pre-recorded videos or if you prefer the live, but I'm glad that we got the chance to do both the live and also the pre-recorded videos, so open a different experience for you guys in the second week. So let's just get right into it. Go ahead and open your Excel file from the last session, and today is gonna be a very short class, very simple. What we're gonna do is, instead of using the manual operation, in other words, instead of multiplying using the cell address manually by putting the star or the asterisk sign, we're going to go ahead and start using some formulas that are built in, such as this here: sum, product, average, count, and so forth. So what we're going to do is just go through a few of these functions here, just the basics, and we're going to display or show how they work. And then after that, we're going to convert basically the ones that already exist here to use the formulas instead of the operation with the star and so forth. So we have a bunch of formulas that are built into Excel to perform different mathematical functions, and if you want to use some of them, you can begin with just writing the equal sign, and that will bring up, that should bring up a quick reference to, let me try that again. Alright. So you could start with the equal sign and manually put in these signs like multiply, add, subtract, and so forth with your cell references, or you can go ahead and click on Autosum. This usually just goes and adds this sum function for you first. It will try and select columns that it thinks you might want to add, but you can always erase that and then start selecting cells manually, right? So in this case, what we're gonna do is, for the sum here, we're gonna select from cell E7 all the way to E13. And if you notice here, sum, and then the correct format is to have the brackets, which again, Excel usually generate those for you when you're selecting a formula. And then when you select and drag from one column to the next, it goes and add the range for you, and that's what the colon here is representing. Before, we just had one cell reference, which is here in E13, times then another cell reference for our subtotal. But in this case, which is our sum, our total, what we can do is we can select a range from E7 all the way to E13, and that's what the colon represents. So please remember that, guys. The colon represents a range, and what a range is, it's from one cell to another cell, not just one individual cell and then another individual cell. It's referencing an entire range or an entire group of cells that are found next to each other or below each other. So what we could do here is to go ahead and we can copy this formula here and we can paste it here. So if you look at this, we have equals, and then we multiply the entire column, not multiply, sorry, add the entire column. But look how large that is, look how kind of messy or blocky that is. So what we can do here now is we're gonna paste this formula. We'll just go ahead and copy this. and then I'm gonna paste the formula in here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna extend the range to select all the way to E20. Just like with the first manual, or the way we do it ourselves, we added E7 plus E8, 9, 10, 11. We went all the way to 20. But using a formula, we can just put sum. We don't even have to put the plus sign because the keyword sum in all caps lets us know that what we're going to be adding, and then within the brackets we're going to be adding cells from E7 all the way to, and in this case the colon sign represents a range, so we're going from E7 all the way to E20, and that's our range that we'll be adding. So same thing again, if you were to add a number here in the column, let me go ahead and copy that again and save. Alright, so again I'm gonna go ahead and do this and press enter. I didn't press enter last time, I believe. Okay, what's happening? Alright, there you go. I didn't copy it properly. So again, if you go ahead and enter new values here, you'll notice this sum does increase for our total, and you'll notice this one here that I added for practice or just for display also updates, because then this has the same formula as well. So that's how you could use sum instead of using the plus manually, plus 7 all the way to 20. So that's one of the functions that we can use. But in this case, how about trying to multiply the subtotal? So I'm going to delete this. So I'm going to click on the little arrow here where it says Autosum, and this is found in the Home tab. And I'm going to click More Functions, because none of the functions that were showing there did what I wanted it to do. So when you click on More Functions, you're going to be able to find a lot of functions. You could select all here, and it's going to give you a bunch of functions. All of these are functions that do different things. Again, they're not limited to just maths. We have date and time functions, financial functions, text functions, engineering functions, web, you name it, right? But what we want to do, I guess, if you want to look for a function that you know the name of, then you can search here and it will find it for you. So if we want to do product, because product is when you multiply numbers, right? So multiply is all the numbers given as arguments. So we're going to click OK. Here it's asking me to provide basically the numbers. I'm going to cancel it here. Let me do that again. When it comes to functions and cells, you gotta be careful how you reference the cells and what you're doing. So, alright. Since I don't want to calculate a range, because this is telling me to calculate range D9 all the way to F9, and that's from here all the way to these three columns here. I don't want that. What I want to multiply is A and then 7. I start to A7, the first item, and I want to multiply D7, which is the price of the item. So notice it gives you a preview of what that will look like. 4, which is where A7 address contains value 4, and 15, which is contained in D7, and then it multiplies all the numbers, therefore you would get 60. If you click OK, then you get 60, which is the same subtotal here. Note the different formulas though, guys. With product, we don't have a colon anymore to represent range, because we're not trying to multiply from here all the way here, right? From A7 all the way to D7. We're not doing that. We're multiplying specific cells. It's almost like this one here. We're multiplying one cell times another. But in this case, in this case, we're using the function called product to multiply A7 and D7, just that we use a comma to separate them and reference them instead of using a colon, right? So far, colon, again, used for ranges, is to cover a group of cells but that are next to or below each other. Comma allows you to select individual cells, just like how we reference them individually when we did the manual multiplication. So those are the two differences when it comes to commas or the colon, right? The colon is best used when you're doing totals and you have to add an entire column. That's why we would want to use colons. However, you'd want to use commas if you're selecting individual cells that are not next to each other, but you still need to multiply them individually and not as a group. So we're multiplying A7, which is 4, times D7. And notice they are not a group, they are not next to each other, not directly. Therefore, we have to select their address kind of like individually or nitpicking specifically, right? So that's the product. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here. Notice it's telling me there's a bad reference. It's because it was trying to take A7 to D7. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fix that by simply just entering the correct cells. So A7 times D7. So remember I told you guys it's kind of funny when it comes to selecting the cells and copying functions, because they kind of try and do their own thing and they try to do what they believe is what the user is trying to do as well, or trying to fix what the user is trying to do. So sometimes you will have to just go ahead and fix those formulas yourselves, right? So now that this is correct, which is equals to product A7 comma D7, I can go ahead and copy this down and then I can paste it here. And because again the borders, so notice that when you copy and paste, you also end up copying and pasting the borders. Alright, so let me just fix that real quick. Alright, so now we have the formula and not the manual multiplication of these cells. So pretty much that's it for the assignment. Go ahead, use the function for product, make sure to use the comma for product, and then for the total use sum, and make sure you use the colon to represent our range from E7 to E20, right? So let's see. Alright, so we have a couple minutes, so why not let me show you guys some of the other functions here. So this one was product. So why not show you guys, how about min? There's a function here called min, which basically what it does is it displays the minimum number from a range. So just like what we did with the sum, we're going to select all our subtotals, and then when I press enter, it goes and check, okay, which one is the lowest number out of our range. Notice it still covers from E7 to E13, which is this highlighted range here. But in a case, for example, if you wanted to show a report and say, alright, what was the cheapest thing that we sell today? You can go ahead and put, well, min, and then go ahead and go to the subtotal, and you could say, well, out of all of these sales, which I highlighted here, the cheapest thing was $28. So the cheapest thing we sold today was $28. You could also use min, for example, to say, alright, well, which grade was the lowest grade so far, and then min would probably show like, okay, this person I got like 52 was the lowest grade in the class so far. So That's what min can be used for. And then let's go ahead and display what max is used for. Well, if you figured out min, then max is basically the opposite of min. Max looks for the largest number in a group that you've selected. So if I go ahead and select this, the largest number should be 350 because that's the largest number out of this group. And when I press enter, yeah, 350 is shown. So this is the same principle as min, except you're looking for the max number, the highest number, right? Next one I want to show you guys is count. Count numbers basically just count the amount of cells you selected or the amount of numbers you've selected. So I'm not gonna select these three. I want to select these here. So I want to select all the subtotals and press enter, and notice it tells me 7. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it gives you a count of how many cells you've selected. And basically you could use this to perform averages, because for example, if you had 7 grades, imagine if these were 7 grades and not 7 subtotals. You could have put the sum of the grades. Let's say you have 1, 2, 3, 4 grades. You could do the sum of the grades, add up all the grades, and then divide them by the count, meaning the number of grades. And that's how you perform average, right? You take the amount of grades you have, add them together, and then how many grades were given. For example, if you had 3 tests, you would add all the scores of the tests up, and then you divide the total by 3 because there were 3 tests, and that's how you would get average. So you could use count for that. You could use count just to figure out how many sales you did for just this one invoice. Of course, if you had multiple invoices, you could have done count and then count all the sales, or maybe count all of this, and then you could see how much stuff you sold on just a daily basis or a monthly basis or a yearly basis. So that's what count can be used for. Alright, and then if you just go ahead and click there again, you'll notice average. What's the average between numbers? Same thing, I'm just gonna select these numbers here just because they're there. What is the average between all these numbers? Well, there's 7 numbers. Press enter. The average is 147.57. So if you want to confirm that, you can always go ahead and open up your calculator app, and we know the total is 1033, and we already knew that the count was 7 from earlier, so we get 147.57, and then they stop the decimal here, place here, because 1 doesn't round off to a higher number. So this average function basically does exactly what I said, just kind of helps you kind of do it faster, right? But it's pretty much the same functionality of what I said you could do, except it's done already by Excel, right? So let me go ahead and put average here. Alright, so these were the main functions I wanted to cover: product, min, max, count, average, and sum. You already have your sum here, so I'm not gonna write it over again. But you get it, guys. You could do a lot of different functions in Excel, which helps speed up the process in terms of calculation. It avoids having to manually add all the cells that you wanted to add. It can help you streamline or fix some of those issues, especially when it comes to time, right? A lot of people don't want to waste time manually selecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then imagine if you have an invoice that has like 50 items, or instead of having just invoice 1, you had maybe invoice 1 to maybe like 60, which could easily be done on a big company, right? Alright, for the subtotal, and then replace the one in total to use sum, right? Alright, then guys, as usual, stay safe. I'm not sure what's gonna happen in the 2 weeks after Easter. They did confirm on the news that this state of emergency is going to continue for the entire month of April. If we have to continue classes, then I'll just continue right where we left off. in the next 2 weeks, basically Easter vacations, once that is over, if we have to continue with more online classes, then I'll just pick up straight from day 9, I believe. Yeah, so today is day 8. I'm gonna be posting these soon. So we'll continue right under day 9, and basically we continue right where we left off, right? But if the administration says that we're not gonna continue with the online, I can understand why they might want to say that, because it's again kind of overwhelming. We've already done 2 weeks, and I can only imagine how many work you guys have already done. But I'll wait and see what they say, okay? If they say to continue, then I'll continue, but maybe I'll reduce it to just maybe like 2 sessions a week after that, right? So if we continue after April vacations with the online, I'm gonna try and limit to just 2 sessions per week, alright? 2 sessions in a week after April, and then 2 sessions the week ending the month of April, alright? Alright then, I'm gonna stop here. Again, stay safe, you guys. Please submit all assignments by Friday, that's tomorrow. Well, tomorrow based on when this video was recorded. So please get it done by Friday, or at the very latest by Sunday, alright? I'm gonna start checking those Monday next week. To be exact, Monday 6th of April, alright?